Hello, my name is Mary Hilton and I'd like to welcome you to today's presentation, MoxiWorks 101, Let's Get Presenting. I'm so excited that you decided to join us today. I think you're going to find this is a piece of software that can really transform your business with very sleek and professional looking presentations. I'm going to be leading us through the beginning portion of this class, and I'll come back at the end, and I'll be answering your questions along the way as well. And then doing a demo of the product, we are lucky enough to have with us Dawn McClellan, who's the training manager at MoxiWorks. Before we get started, there are a few things that we need to cover, so let's take a look at those next. A couple of important notes to start us off. First, please know that as independent contractors, all learning opportunities are optional. I'm here to help explain how the tool functions and how it may benefit your business, but it's completely up to you to decide whether what we cover today should be implemented or not. As we talk through the tool functionality, we'll also discuss best practices for connecting with people. Please note that it's important to comply with state and local do not contact laws and regulations. If you're unsure how to stay DNC compliant, please connect with your broker owner or branch manager to find out more. One final note is that the COVID-19 crisis has resulted in executive orders and other protective guidance at the local and state levels. Please make sure that you're reviewing the requirements in your area with your broker, including those related to non-essential businesses and telemarketing to consumers. Now, let's discuss our time together by reviewing our agenda. First, I'll share a bit about what MoxiPresent is, and then discuss how this presentation tool can benefit you and your business. Next, we'll take a tour of MoxiPresent with a demo from Dawn over at MoxiWorks, and we'll wrap up with some important next steps to ensure you have what you need to get started and know where to find additional learning opportunities and resources. Throughout this presentation, you'll see things like questions, polls, and tips pop up on the right side of your screen that allow me to engage with you throughout our time together. Let's give it a try with our first question. How excited are you to learn more about MoxiPresent? I'll give you a few seconds to answer the question that's popping up right now. You can ask questions through the chat located on the lower right side of your screen. I'll answer your questions as soon as I can, and if you don't hear from me immediately during class, then you can expect an email response from me after. At the end of our session today, when we talk about next steps, I'll be providing a link to all the other support training materials available to you. Another cool feature we can take advantage of today is the like button, which is located near the bottom right of your screen. When you hear something you like, be sure to give some encouragement by hitting the thumbs up button. Let's give it a try now. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up button now. Thank you for your likes. I'm going to share a couple more exciting features of MoxiPresent, so keep your finger on that like button before we jump into our demo with Dawn. Okay, let's start discussing MoxiPresent. MoxiPresent is considered one of the top comparative market analysis, or CMA, presentation tools on the market. It integrates with your local MLS to provide accurate and up-to-date market data. You'll love how easily presentations come together using pre-designed templates, and you'll create state-of-the-art interactive listing presentations, buyer presentations, and more. Because MoxiPresent is connected to your local MLS, it pulls the latest data from the MLS directly into your presentations each time one is opened. These presentations can be shared whatever way suits your client best, as a digital presentation or as a printed PDF. This allows you to present to your client live, in person, or email it to them to review at their leisure. As an agent, you'll find that MoxiPresent not only saves you time by letting you start right off the bat with polished, professional presentations, it also lets you edit those standard presentations to customize to your personality, your business, and that of the client you're going to visit. You'll even be able to add new slides or reorder the existing ones until you determine how the presentation will go. And finally, because of the data your presentation contains and the way it's shared, you'll impress your clients as a tech-savvy real estate agent who knows their market and stands ready to help them get started. All of this will help you achieve your goal of winning more listings. In fact, MoxiPresent is proven to increase transactions for agents by more than 77%. In the past, you were given fantastic PowerPoint templates for working with your clients. But in order to customize the presentation for each client, you needed to manually go to the MLS to find listing information for comps. ERA has preloaded MoxiPresent for you with those same style of pages. And now, with the CMA tool built in, you'll save time and effort. And with the live connection to your MLS, you'll know you're presenting the latest and greatest information. We asked agents who started using MoxiPresent early on what they thought, and here is some of their feedback. I'm willing to bet we'll hear things like this from you in the near future. There are 4 different types of templates you can use to start your presentation. The first is the buyer presentation. This can be used to educate your buyers and help find the perfect property for your buyer clients or create a CMA on a potential property. Next is the seller presentation. This is a listing presentation which allows you to assess a current or potential home's market value with this traditional CMA while pitching yourself as their agent. The buyer tour is used once the buyer is your client and will guide your clients from listing to listing using an MLS tour with a detailed buyer tour experience. Share the link with your customer and they'll have all those properties on a map and the ability to add comments. And finally, we have the non-listing presentation type. This could be used for an open house, a meet the agent marketing piece, or create interactive newsletters or marketing pieces using custom pages. In addition to those 4 templates, ERA has specialized by creating 2 types of templates for you. When you get ready to select your template, you can choose the classic style or the powered by style. Okay, let's turn it over now to our MoxiPresent expert, Dawn McClellan. Dawn joins us today from the Seattle, Washington area. She's been working with MoxiWorks for 9 years, training agents all over the country on how MoxiPresent can help grow their businesses. And so I present to you Dawn McClellan.
Thank you so much for inviting me today. I want to show you how MoxiPresent works, so let's get started. Welcome to MoxiPresent. This is your homepage for MoxiPresent. And first, before I do a tour of this, I want to show you what a presentation looks like. So we'll open up our presentation from this dashboard and we'll see it load. And as it's loading, you can see it counting up to 100%. That's verifying with the MLS if there's been any update to the content. So your comparables, have they been updated? Has there been any shift or change in the status or pricing? And then any other new pages that you might have added. All of that is checked when we load the presentation. So you will always see the most recent current version of your presentation if you open it today or you open it up a year from now. And then if you're on a desktop device, use your mouse to scroll down. If you're on a mobile device, use your finger to swipe up and you can get to the rest of your presentation. Here we have our cover page. The cover page is going to tell us the title of our presentation, the address of the property that we are doing this presentation for, and even our agent information, it will be listed here. All of the pages I'm going to be showing you are provided by MoxiWorks and allow for you to enter in all of the content that you need for your presentation. But a lot of these pages are also editable. So when we get into building our presentation, I'll point out what things that you can edit. Here, you can choose whether or not you want to show your agent information or if you want to change out what the photograph is for this cover page. We'll then continue scrolling down to get to our property summary. This is our subject property, or the property that this listing presentation or seller CMA presentation is regarding. All of the information you're seeing here can be manually entered in, and the more information you can enter in, the more meaningful this presentation will be for your person. Then we get to our listing location map. This is a map of all the comparables we have selected to help identify where we should list the property that is our subject property. So the map itself shows a star right in the center that locates where our subject property is. And then all of the tags that you have on the map here are going to be color coded to their property status type. Green tags are going to be active properties. Yellow tags, or that kind of that gold color tag, is going to be a pending property. And the red tags are sold properties. You can click on any of the tags on the map and it will actually adjust your carousel at the top of the screen to highlight which property is being viewed. If you want to dive further into the listing details, anytime you see a photograph of a listing within a MoxiPresent presentation, you can select that. It'll open up those listing details and you can see the map itself on the left and the listing details on the right. All of this comes directly from the MLS, and as we scroll down, there's a comment section that I'll be talking about later where you can edit or add your own commentary. This is a great place to add in your own guidance on why this is a great comparable or why you've selected it as a comparable. We'll then continue on to our listing overview page. This is kind of a card view of all that same information we were looking at before, but it's a quick reference guide to see what is going on with each of the individual properties. We can take a look at all of the detail right on the card itself. You'll notice that these are not in a sort order based on the status type. So we have solds mixed in with actives and pendings. You can control the sort type or the sort order here. And then again, anytime you see a photograph, you'll be able to click in to see the full listing details here. Then we get to our side-by-side comparisons. This is your apples to apples comparison. Each of the featured items you can see across the line how they compare to your subject property. Your subject property will stay stuck to the left-hand side here. And in the upper right-hand corner, if you have more than, say, 5 comparables, you'll have an arrow where you can slide over and rotate the carousel through to see additional comparables and how they compare to your subject property. As you scroll down, you'll see some additional features and line items. This is customizable. So if there are certain items that you don't want to include in your presentation, you can actually remove those or choose which features you really want to focus on for your singular presentation here. Then we come to our status comparison page, and this is what I like to call the number cruncher screen because you're seeing only the numbers. All the other pages we've seen so far, we're identifying feature information, we're seeing the map of where they're located, we're getting some different information there, but this is just focusing in on the numbers. You may also notice that we're grouping all of the comparables by their status type here. So previously we had a sort order that we could choose. Here we can choose which status might show up first. By default, it will be active, pending, sold. But if we wanted to have the solds first, we could move them into that order. And while we're creating our presentation, I'll show you how to do that. But here we've grouped everything by status type to just make it a nice clean way to look at the information here. You can even toggle up any of the segments so that you could just focus in on one if you'd like in order to identify it against your subject property there at the top. We then have our listing averages page. This is taking a look at all the comparables we have selected and just what are the average of what's going on there. So we see beds, baths, square footage, we see price per square footage, we see price per lot acre, and then you can see that there are some tabs at the top that showcase those actual status types. So this is interactive. If we want to look at just the averages of, let's say, active and sold together, we can toggle off pending. And then that updates our screen. If we want to look at just the solds, we can toggle off active. And then this updates and helps tell the story of, what's going on in the market. All the actives are doing one thing, pending are doing another, and sold, what actually happened with the sold. And all of those elements get together to tell the story of where we should list our subject property. Then we get to the first of 2 scatter graphs. This one is looking at price versus days on market. You have price on the left-hand side and days on market on the bottom axis there. And you can see the color coding that's happening is consistent throughout the program. Green is active, yellow is pending, red is sold. You can hover over any of the dots on the graph to find out which comparable is impacting the graph. And then you also can click on the image in order to open up that comparable so that you can look through more of the listing details here. This is also an interactive. Not only can you look at the listing details, but you can also toggle off active, pending, or sold so that, again, just like the previous screen, you can focus in your mind on what you're wanting to see here. Our second scatter graph is price and size. Generally, the larger a property is, the more expensive it will be. And you can identify whether or not that's true based on our trend line that you can see right there on the graph. Same rules apply as the previous graph. Our pricing is on the on the left-hand axis, and our size is on the bottom axis. And you can hover over any of the dots to see which comparable is impacting the graph in this manner. Then we get to one of the very first questions people have, which is, what is the price that we should list our property at? And depending on how you work as an agent, you may or may not want to showcase this page in your initial listing appointment. So you can actually turn on or off any of these pages as they pertain to what you're wanting to show to your customer. But this allows you to plug in what an approximated market value might be. That's at the top. There's also a place designated for your own comments. So you can add in your comments and guidance for your person to look at outside of the appointment time. So maybe they come back through and they're looking at this presentation after you have left or after your appointment has ended. You can still be there in spirit with your guidance by adding in some commentary. So there's a space for that here on this page. And then towards the bottom under pricing stats, this is all information that is it is built by the system. So depending on the sold comparables you choose, that will drive the data that's showing up underneath the pricing stats. So that first number is taking a straight average of all of the comparables that have been selected, or all the sold comparables that have been selected. The second number is actually looking at the price based on the square footage. So it's finding the average price per square foot of all of your sold comparables, applying that to the square footage of your subject property, and giving us that bottom number. So that is the average based on price per square foot. That gives just some guidance as to what's going on in the area and helps identify what might be a good price point to put this property at. And of course, we all know the pricing really depends on your customer's situation. So do they need to move quickly because they have to leave the area for a job opportunity, or do they have some time? What would be the appropriate pricing for that property based on their need? This just gives you some additional data points. Then we have that next question, which is, great, we're listing our property at this price point. What will I actually walk away from this sale with? And on this net proceeds sheet, we can walk through all of the pricing information, all of the costs associated with selling a property. Over on the left, you can see in the green is the walk away price. So this is what your person will end up with based off of all of the costs associated with selling this property. So are they paying off a mortgage? Do they have fees or other costs, taxes? All those things can be put in. You can create up to 3 net proceeds scenarios for each individual presentation. So a total of 3 that allow you to run different scenarios. Maybe you're wanting to create a scenario of sell as is. Then you want to have a scenario of, if you do a little renovation, this is what it could cost. And I've also seen agents use this to run through an offer. So they've received the offer. It's easy to walk through all of the details and the data points with your person by putting it into the net proceeds sheet so they know exactly what their bottom line is. So you can have up to 3 net proceeds sheet per presentation. And finally, who are you? So this is our About Me page, who the agent is, the agent profile page. And all of this information actually comes from the MoxiWorks My Account. So the My Account page inside of MoxiPresent. And you'll be able to then go and update that, and it will update it directly into your presentation. So you'll always have, let's say you send this out today, and a year from now, you update your bio information inside your account. Someone else opens up that presentation they got from you a year ago. It'll have the most current information always. So you can always update your info, and it will be applied to your presentations on your behalf. So let's actually go back and I'll show you how to build what I just showed you. First thing though, I want to show you some navigation points in here. Down in the bottom right hand corner, you have 2 arrows and then a button that has 3 lines on it. The arrows will allow you to navigate back a page, or forward a page. But the 3-line item will actually open up a table of contents and allow you to jump to wherever you need to go. So in this case, I'm going to jump up to our cover page so we can start at the beginning, and then I'm going to go back to MoxiPresent. So here is our home page for MoxiPresent. You'll find all your presentations created here. To create a brand new presentation, we're just going to go up to the blue button in the upper right-hand corner and create new. MoxiPresent has 4 presentation types, and we are going to be focusing on seller and buyer tour. For our example right now, though, we're going to grab a seller presentation, click on continue, and then we'll select our template. So your brokerage will provide multiple templates. Maybe they'll have the default one and then some additional ones. Check back often to see if anything has been updated here. But all brokerage templates will be available from this screen. If you create and save your own templates, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we start building, but there are different settings you might have for the pages, the order in which you want to display certain properties, the order in which you want to display the pages themselves, or you've added in or removed some of that content and you want to use it that way every time. Instead of creating it from scratch every time, there is an option for you to create your own templates, which would be in a drop-down menu that says My Templates. You can swap that out and select your own template that you have built, and that gets applied to the presentation you're creating. After we hit continue again, we'll be brought to our settings menu, which allows us to type in the title of our presentation. So prepared for is the title of our presentation. We then have the option to select our listing source. MLSs do not let us commingle data. So if you belong to an MLS that sometimes lets you see other data, in the MLS when you sign in, you may not see all that same data when you sign in to MoxiPresent. So we ask you to select the data source that will give you the majority of information that you're looking for. And if you belong to more than one, you would be able to select that source from this drop-down menu. In this case, I'm going to go with my primary here, and then I'm going to just give this a name, so example. So once we have typed in our name, our create button will populate, and that would bring us to a page called subject property. In this example, though, I'm going to close this window, and I'm going to come back to the presentation that we were just looking at, and I'm going to select the edit icon. This will also bring me to a page called Subject Property, where I can add in all the details about my property that this presentation is regarding. So at the top, you can see I have a field called the Jones family. This is the field that has our title of our presentation. We can then enter in all of the details down below. So I'm going to skip this next field here for just a second, and I'm going to scroll down towards location and then subject property information. For the majority of us, this listing has not been on the MLS before. This listing is something that we're trying to win so that we can list it. And so we want to be able to enter in all the details that we possibly can, which will make this more meaningful for your customer. Now, MoxiPresent will provide you a set of, or an initial search. So when you are looking for comparables, you would plug in some search parameters. Moxie will do that on your behalf using the information from the subject property screen. So we do recommend that you enter in at least some specific pieces of detail so that you will get a good initial search. And those details are your address, the location of where this property is. So plug in that address information. And then as I scroll back down to subject property info, make sure you're including beds, baths, and square footage. So it's really those 4 pieces: location, bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage. That will then start an initial search on our search screen to provide you with some similar comparable properties that you can then start adding into your presentation, or, as I'll show you in just a second, adjust what those filters are. As I scroll back up to the top, however, I do want to mention this top field for copy data from the MLS number. Now, if you are creating a presentation for, let's say, an open house, and you don't want to have to retype all the data that you just put into the MLS itself, the listing is on the MLS, you can use a seller presentation to promote your open house just plug in the listing number at the top here and it will populate all the data for you. And then you don't have to retype any of it. So that is why that is here. It's just a shortcut to allow you to get the information into your presentation and then get on with your day. So I'll scroll down to the bottom and I'll select continue, and this will bring us to our search screen. Now you'll notice that I have actually selected some comparables already because we're editing the presentation I already showed you. But what this is looking at is the initial search that came from the subject property. So we're looking at the address at the top that is showing us where our subject property is located. Our map on the right-hand side is designated, the subject property is that star right in the center. And then all the other properties are surrounding it have that same color coding that was present in the presentation itself. Our search for comparables is a map-based search. This map-based search will show you the map physically on this screen, and then the boundary of the image you're seeing is one of the boundaries for the map itself. So if you might be looking for a specific property and you know that it's close to the edge of the map, you might be better off shifting the map over just a little bit in order to see some additional content. Let me shift it one more time here to have that update. There we go. So you can see that it'll populate a couple more properties over on that right hand side. So the boundary of the visible map is one of the boundaries for finding properties. There are three other boundary options that are on the map itself. You can draw a radius. So just click on radius and then draw out your circle for where you want to focus your boundary and focus your energies to find a comparable. You also have a draw tool that allows you to do a quick draw, which if you're on a mobile device, just use your finger to draw the shape that you want, or multi-draw, which is my favorite because it allows you to really be specific about where you're wanting to look for your properties. You can follow along on a street and then close that loop and only see properties that are inside that box. The other thing about the multi-draw is we could move our map down, select the draw tool again, and grab a secondary section. So if you're wanting to highlight two neighborhoods but not in between those neighborhoods, you can do that. And the third boundary is a school attendance zone boundary. This allows you to look for all of the public schools that are in the area. It'll then populate your map with some icons and select from those icons what boundary you're wanting to highlight. So let's go with our district boundary for this particular elementary school, and it will update to show that entire boundary and then all the properties within it. So 3 ways to sort based on your boundary. Over on the left are all of those comparables that are shown on the map. They're now in list form over on the left. But at the top of the list, you'll be able to adjust your filters. So you could go in and adjust your price, your beds, baths, and the filters that you want to have on and finding those properties. So property type, property info, features, and then over on the left-hand side are listing status. So right now you can see, well, I'm looking for solds that were sold in the last 6 months. That may be either too much detail or not enough detail. So you can change the sort or option or the listing status filter here to then focus on, let's look at just the last 3 months instead. We'll hit apply and see what happens to our data. We'll let that load here in just a second. We have quite a bit of information for this particular school district that we're looking for. And once that loads, we'll then be able to go through and check out what those listings are. And actually that dropped it by about 25 listings. So we had quite a few listings there, and it's now dropped it down by about 25. So we can then select the listing that we want to include as a comparable by simply hovering over the listing in the list on the left, and there's a plus icon that shows up on the image of the property. We can click on that and it then adds that property to our comparable list. Now, there is no vendor out there outside of your MLS that will have as much detail for filtering as your MLS does. It just doesn't exist. Your MLS is a comprehensive source for all of that filtering to find something hyper local or hyper specific. Maybe you're looking for properties with blue doors and north facing skylights. You can search for that kind of specificity in your MLS search, and that's fine. The Moxie presentation is there to present your information to your person in a very easy to understand, concise way, beautiful imagery, easy to digest information. So if you're looking for something really specific for your situation, grab that number, the listing number from the MLS. There is a toggle here on the search button. On the search tab, there's a toggle here where it allows you to then type in the MLS number. You can either copy it in or you can type it in, and you just have to enter in a comma between the properties and then hit search, and you will then only see those properties included on your list. Select all of them and move on. So don't be afraid to go to your MLS to find exactly what you need, especially if it's something hyper local or very specific. Grab those listing numbers, plug them into MoxiPresent, and move on. So let's go ahead and move on. We're going to go to our listings page. Listings page is going to show us all of the comparables we selected on our search page. We can always go back and rerun a different search and add additional properties if we want. So you're not stuck with just the one search you did. You can go back and adjust the search parameters and find more listings if you want to do that. This is also the page where we can sort our listings. So under display order in the top left, you can see that the statuses are listed out in specific order. Excuse me. So we have active, pending, sold. There is an other category, and that's for any properties that might be canceled or expired or withdrawn. And you can change the order in which these will display. So this display order will actually impact that number cruncher screen I showed you, and it will impact the averages, the bar graph screen, as well as our scatter graphs, where we're grouping the properties by their status. So we can change that by simply selecting the edit icon and then dragging and dropping if we want to say have sold be first. Save that, and now that will update the display order in our presentation. Over to the right, we have a sort order for all the other pages where we're seeing the properties listed out individually. So we can change this to any one of these options, whether it be by status, by price, days on market, distance from our subject property. We can do a custom sort order. You can see the list is long here, but I'm going to go ahead and change it to distance. And then if you're wanting a secondary sort order, we have that as well. So this plus icon allows you to say, you know what, we're doing it by distance, but in that I do want to look at it priced high to low, or I want to look at it in a status order or days on market, sold date. All of that information is available here. The only other thing that I really want to call out here is the mention that I made earlier. When looking at the listing details for one of the properties in the presentation, I mentioned that you can add in your own comments, and that's a great way for you to keep your kind of the spirit of yourself there in providing guidance for your person by adding in commentary into your presentation. So you can do that on an individual listing level by selecting the Edit Remarks button. That's going to be under every single listing image, Edit Remarks. Now, you're not trying to sell this property. You're using it as an example of a comparable. So depending on your own personal choice, you could remove everything that the listing agent put in here, because it's not about selling this property. It's about using this property as an example. But if you're uncomfortable doing that, which I totally understand, you can come down to the bottom, you can enter in a few spaces, and then I recommend adding in some asterisks so that your customer, your person will know that these are your remarks. And you can add in your own guidance and commentary here. Save that, and then do that for every single listing as you can, and then we'll move on to the next page. Now, estimate. The estimate page is that page where you're going to plug in a number of that estimated market value that you may want to leave off during the first initial listing appointment, but you can come back in and add it in later. Over on the left, you'll see the pricing stats that are driven by the content we've just added in. So what sold comparables have we selected? That will change the numbers that you see under that pricing stats box, and that information will display in your presentation as well. And then here is that space where we can add in your expert remarks about the pricing. Additionally, on this page is another tab. This extra tab at the top left here is the estimated net proceeds tab. So you'll notice my pricing stats box stayed right where it was, but my net proceeds form has popped up. I can plug in all of the information that I need to. So mortgage payoff, brokerage fees, settlement costs, taxes, other costs. We even have a section at the bottom for custom costs if there's not a field for a thing you need. Now, we don't pre-populate this with any information because it's going to be really specific to your county or state rules, and it may be different from day to day or month to month depending on your market. So this is something you would need to fill out manually, but all of the details are here. And if you want to go ahead and create multiple scenarios, in the upper right-hand corner of the sheet is a copy button. This allows you to copy to another scenario. Let's call this scenario 2. We'll take out that copy. And then we can change details. So do we need to change the seller price? If we come in and say, hey, if you did some maintenance or renovation, so we could say renovations and change that to 15,000 instead of 1,500 here. And then we come back up and say, you know what, you do that, and we could change this up to 650, getting some of that money back and a little bit more cash in your pocket in the end. We can then make a third scenario if we wish, or simply continue. Now at this stage, we're on our Pages page, the Pages tab, and on the Pages tab, we have all of the content that will be included in your presentation. So this is where you have your slide order on the left. You can see the titles of each slide and where they are. If you want to change the order of anything, it's as simple as dragging and dropping that. So that'll update the order. If you want to add additional content, you can. If you want to email this to your person right away, you can do that from here as well. But before I do any of that, I do want to show you how you can edit some of the individual pages that are provided by Moxi. And the most important one I want to highlight is this side-by-side comparisons page. This is that apples to apples comparison page. And any page here, when you click on it, that has an edit icon will allow you to make some adjustments to it. So this one in particular I want to highlight because you have so many fields and filters that you can show, but you might not want to show all of those. So you could come through and uncheck what's not necessary. So maybe land tenure is not necessary. Maybe under the features section, you could change out if it's new construction or fuel or whatever is not relevant to this particular listing or this neighborhood. So I'm actually going to take out a couple other things. School district is fine, but I don't need to list out the elementary, middle, or high school. So I've just taken out a few things. Close this. That will automatically save the changes and update my presentation. Now I can go ahead and review my presentation. It's still open on my tab up here at the top. I'm going to select that tab and then I'm going to refresh it. And the reason I'm showing you this is because you can essentially edit on the fly. If you are having an appointment with your person and they ask you to add something in, you can open it up on your own device, add in that information, ask them to refresh it on their device, and they will see that update happen in real time. So now I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. If you're on a mobile device, swipe up with your finger. We can then look at the changes that we have made. First major change I want to note is the listing location map. We have different sort order. We have a few more comparables here. We also, if I come down to my side-by-side comparisons, you may notice that there are some different features on here and some things that I've taken off. Let me scroll down towards the bottom where it's just going to show me, it should show me school district. And it's not, so that might not be something that's pulling through, but it will, instead of showing the elementary school itself, it should show just the school district. And then as I get to my number cruncher screen, you can see that solds are at the top. A lot more solds that we added in that edit, and then active and pending are down below. So these are the changes that we made to our presentation. And if it's already open on our customer's screen, They just need to refresh it in order to get the most up-to-date version of this content. But let's come back to our pages screen and talk about ways that we can customize even further. So I changed the order of a couple of slides, I changed the content of a couple of slides, but let's talk about how we can really update some other information here. We can add additional pages. So at the top of the column on the left is your Add Page button. This Add Page button allows you to access anything from your library or create something new. Now, adding from library allows you to not only access pages that you've created in the past, but also any of the MoxiWorks provided report pages. And as your brokerage creates content, you'll have access to a brokerage library as well. So the library is a really powerful place to find content, and we actually have report pages listed here, my pages, and if you have brokerage pages, they will be in a folder as well. And it's very easy to then select any of the folders, open up any of the folders that there might be subfolders there, and then select any of the pages to see what that content might be. So you can double check the content. If you're happy with that page, you could just go ahead and hit Select Add. If we are back inside the library, you could actually add that right from the library and not go further in to review the page. Maybe you already know what the page looks like. You're happy to include that, and so you'll just select Add as well from here. Adding from the library is super easy. We'll come back to our drop-down menu at the left, hit Presentation, and this brings us back into our presentation. Now, where are those pages that we just added? I was on this side-by-side comparisons page when I went to select Add to Library, or Add from Library, excuse me. So my additional pages are both sitting right here. I can now move them around. So maybe it's appropriate for me to move them down towards my agent profile instead. All I have to do is drag and drop. Automatically updates and saves. If this is open on my customer's screen, they just have to refresh their page to have these new elements. Now let's talk about creating a new page. You have the option under Add Page to create new. And then you have two options here. You can build something custom that will be mobile responsive and available inside of MoxiWorks or MoxiPresent, or you could upload a PDF. So if you already have some marketing content that you want to make sure is included, you could upload that as a PDF form. Just know that PDFs will transfer themselves into an image and it will just shrink on someone's mobile device screen, and they'll have to use their fingers to kind of zoom in on it. Whereas if you rebuilt that in the Build-A-Page, it will be mobile responsive and would just adjust itself to the screen size that it's being viewed from. So keep that in mind. No right way or wrong way to go about it, just so you know how that works. We're going to focus in on building a page. So I'm going to select Build Page, and then I'm going to be asked to select one of the layouts. Now there is a print version of MoxiPresent. So if you knew that you needed to print off this presentation and leave it behind, consider what you're building and what kind of page content you're adding in, because you have the option of either updating or creating a page from the web view or the print view. I recommend that you start from the web view because you can always copy that over to the print view and adjust it as needed. Here you can select one of your layouts. We have 5 available to you, and then you can add and adjust as needed. So I'm just going to select this one with the column or the row at the top, kind of the header bar, and then 2 columns. Select Create, and then we have our layout. So in each of these different boxes, we have 4 buttons, and the buttons are basically telling you exactly what they do. If you want to add text, select the text button. You get an editor that allows you to make adjustments to text. So I'm going to say that this is my headline. I'll highlight that. I'll bold it. I can make this extra large text. I'll center it. I have all of the power regarding how that text is going to look and lay out. The next button is for an image. So you can click on image and it will pop open your library from the right hand side. If you have images in here already, you can select any of those images and they will fill up the box. If you do not have any images already, hit upload, and then you can go into any of your images on your own dashboard and add in content. So let's add in some milk and cookies. We'll open that up. That'll fill in our space here, and we can then select add. It fills up our box entirely. The third button is for video, and video is very quick and easy to add. If you can copy and paste, you can add video. Video does need to be hosted on a streaming service, and using this button, that video must be hosted on either YouTube, Vimeo, or Dailymotion. If you have it hosted someplace else, we'll talk about that in just a second, but this quick, easy copy paste the URL option is only available for Vimeo, YouTube, and Dailymotion. So I have an example for YouTube right away. I have my video already up. At the bottom of that video is a share button. I'll click on that, and I'm actually going to select this URL right here, hit copy. And I'm using this URL instead of the one in the navigation because it's just a cleaner URL. It's an easier one to copy in, and it works nicer as far as I'm concerned. You don't need the extra long URL up here in the navigation. So we're going to come back to present. I'm going to paste what I just copied and add that. It also will take up the width of my column. Now you might notice that there's some white space underneath that, and that's because my image was taller. The image is impacting the height of my row, and my video is simply filling in width-wise, side to side, where it can. So just keep that in mind if you're worried about layout or placement. This is going to look fine. If you're on a mobile device, it will actually stack this information, so they won't be side by side anyway, but on a desktop, you will see them side by side. Now let's go ahead and add in one more row because I want to talk about that last button. And when you add in another row, you have the choice of adding in multiple columns. Maybe I want to have, well here I'm moving around the sliding sizing bar, so you can see where I can shift the column to be all the way over, maybe a third over, maybe in the middle, or over the other direction. I can also increase the number of columns from 1 up to 4 total. So that's as many columns as you can have. I'm actually going to bring this down to just 1 column and select OK. And I have those same 4 buttons available to me. So here I'm actually going to select More. And in the More option, you'll notice that my editor is much more detailed. There's a lot more content I can do. And that's because I can include text, images, and video all in the same box using More. So you do need to think a little bit more about your layout and what you want to include in there. You have a templates section that allow you to select whatever template you might want to use and swap out the content that way. So let me select one here, and you'll see that it just fills in the box, and you can then just double click on any of the text and change that, double click on a picture, browse your server for that. It'll find anything you have in your library, or you can upload an image, and it will simply place that text and content where you want it to be. And that is how you create your custom page. Let's come up to the top and select Save, and I'm going to give this a name. We'll call it Milk and Cookies. And I'm just going to say image and text, image and video, and then save. Now this particular page gets added directly into my presentation. The only call out that I want to make here is if I want to make this a print version, if you go to print your presentations, they will automatically convert any of your custom pages to print on your behalf. But if you have a video in there, that video will just not show up because video does not convert to print. So if you want to make sure that you have a printed version of your page, you would just select print at the top here and then copy over from your web design, and you can eliminate this and swap that out for a different item. Maybe it's a different image, maybe it's a different piece of text to describe what you were showing. We'll put this in with this different image here, and you can still use this text or this page for your printed version. We'll save that and then close this page, and we can see that it has been added to our presentation right here. Let me quickly show you how to create a buyer tour. I want to make sure that that is part of what we're showing you here today. And that's really easy to create. We'll hit create new, buyer tour, continue. We're going to select our own template here, or our brokerage's default template, excuse me. We're then going to just call this buyer tour example. Create. This will land us on an options page. The options page allows us to upload our own image if we want it to, or we could add in, we partner with Interix Drive Time, and that allows us to plug in a commute address and know what the commute time frame would be from the property to the address we plug in there, whether that be a work address or a school address, or whatever the address is that is the most important commute address to know about. Then we'll go ahead and hit continue, and we'll search for properties. And what we're doing here is actually searching in the neighborhood where we want to go. So in this case, Walnut Creek. And we can plug in all of the criteria, beds, baths, and square footage. We can plug in if we want single family or condo. I only want to look at active properties, so I'm going to just select active properties. I can plug in any of the features that I want and sort that way. That has brought us down to a reasonable number of properties to look at. And again, just like with a seller presentation, if you know what properties you want to include, grab them from the MLS and copy and paste those numbers. In this example, I'm just going to select some at random so you can see what happens. We'll go on to our listings page. And on our listings page is where we can sort the order of how we would go visit these properties. And actually, this isn't in too bad an order, but I'm going to go ahead and select change order just so you can see what you can do. So I'm going to swap a couple of the properties, and you can see that update in real time. Maybe I want to go in the exact opposite order. I can do that too and reach these properties that way. Let me see if one more change what that looks like. All right, that's how you're going to go see those properties. We'll hit save order, and we'll go to pages. And pages is going to be exactly the same as your seller presentation. You can change the order, you can edit your pages, you can add pages, and then you can go ahead and email this presentation. Now I want to show you one really great feature of the of the buyer tour, and that is the ability to go see the property and add ratings and reviews. So if we select from this preview, we'll select one of the comparables. We can actually click on directions, and this will then pop open a Google map and find directions from where I am in the Seattle area down to the Walnut Creek area and tell me how long it's going to take for me to get there, about 13 hours or 2.5 hours by plane. And then we can come in and also add in a review. And this is a great opportunity to include some information for your agent. So this is for the customer to click on and add information for the agent to know what they like about it, what they don't like about it. For me as a buyer, it would be fantastic to remember which property I went to see that had the toilets right next to each other, but it was considered a 2-bathroom place and one was being used as a planter. Not a deal breaker, but I do want to make note of that so I know what renovations I would need to undertake. So the ratings and review section is a great option to include in here. In order for the ratings and review sections to work, though, you do need to email this presentation. So we're going to click on send. We would then populate the email here. And what's great is if you're connected to Moxie Engage, any name or group name you have in your Moxie Engage database, you can type into here and it will send to that person based on the profile in Moxie Engage, and also leave a trail of activity for that person regarding this presentation in their Moxie Engage profile. If not, you would then just type in the email address, give it a subject, message, and send. That way, when your person gets their presentation, they click add review, it will actually ask them to verify the email. And that's a protection for you, the agent, so you don't get a ton of emails coming to you because you know your person's going to send this presentation on to friends and family. So instead of inundating you with reviews, you would just get your clients' reviews by having them verify their email address. And that is the buyer tour. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to hand this back over to our brand expert to close out our time together today.
Well, that wraps up our demo of MoxiPresent. I hope you're as excited as I am for the possibilities of what this awesome tool can do for you. Let's talk about some next steps. Here are some resources for you as you get started. There's a Getting Started checklist available on your Learning Center with links to help articles and step-by-step guides. We've also created a couple of self-paced e-learning courses you could take any time of the day or night. MoxiWorks also provides excellent help from within the MoxiPresent application, too. Whenever you're at the home screen, click the gear icon in the upper right corner and then select Help and Feedback. Next, you can click the Need Some Help button. This will allow you to see all kinds of videos and help documents with the latest updates from MoxiWorks. Or the other option is, from any screen within MoxiPresent, click the red Help button on the far right side. This will open up a chat window where you can type your question. In response to that, you'll get some suggested answers, and if that doesn't match what you want, simply click the Get in Touch button to speak with a MoxiWorks representative. Thanks for joining us today to learn about MoxiPresent. I hope you learned enough about the tool to see how exciting it is and how it can help you and your business grow. If you did, we'd love to hear about it in our evaluation. You can complete an evaluation by clicking the link that should be popping up right about now and select that you took a virtual class called MoxiPresents Agent and that your virtual instructor was Dawn McClellan. Thank you again for your time and participation. Have a great day.